Hi, I'm Elizabeth. I'm here to talk to you about water quality. I feel like such a nerd. Over this past, I'd say, year and a half or so that I've gotten into water quality and water contamination and not really having a whole lot of people to talk about it with locally. I kind of found some people on the internet. Thank you. So I signed up to do this Mediocre education hour back in January, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna do this big talk, and I'm gonna have these diagrams. I'm gonna talk to this expert that I know out west. And so here it is. I woke up at 5:40 from a nap, and I'm like, I'm just gonna scribble down some notes and talk to you about kind of what happened, right? I thought that was a good story to start out with. I've never really talked about it with anybody, except for some people on the internet. So I'd like to start off with a video, and I think we had talked about kind of playing a video, so that just kind of gives you a perspective as to kind of how my interest got piqued. It came actually, there was a video that my friend had posted on Facebook about running buffalo, and I was like, oh, this is cool, running buffalo, and I hit play. And it was actually pretty horrific, what I saw, and it kind of piqued my interest, and it's kind of changed my life and kind of changed my perspective about a whole lot of other things, all having to do with water, go figure. So here's the video, if we can pull that up. Can we pull the video up? Is it? Okay, thank you. So here we go. I'll just let you watch this.
Together we rise, together we fall. Open your eyes, understand this fight. Mother is home, water is life. So wake the mountains, summon the sea. We are the lions, the roots of the tree. So feel the rhythm, hear the call. Together we rise, forever we fall. Out in the jungle, honest and humble. So leave your ego as we go to face the rising tide. Hate is your weakness here, exposes what you fear. And all that's left will be the echoes of Father Time. Mama, she gave you life. You first open your eyes. Could you not say your actions were honest, righteous, and justified? On through the fire and smoke, your story's what you wrote. Generations come and bear the burdens of what you sow. So, bold man gon' make your claim, bury what's in your way. I'm standing with the warriors on the right side of history. Understand this fight. Mother is home, water is life. Wake the mountains, summon the seas. We are the lions, the roots of the trees. To feel the rhythm, hear the call. Together we rise, forever we fall. There's something happening here. What it is, been happening for years and years. There's these men with guns over there, pushing back brothers and sisters and children just cause they stand with a peaceful prayer. I swear, oh lost with whom I need. Just another black serpent beneath our feet. Just another tool in the corporate scheme, meant to keep the masses on their knees. Well, snake charmers, your karma will come quick. People sound the alarm. Stand for the future, stand for the kingdom. One people, one earth, one tribe, one nation. One nation. Skies understand this fight. Mother is home, water is light. Wake the mountains, sun in the sea. We are the lions, roots of the tree. So feel the rhythm, hear the call. Together we rise, forever we fall.
Moments ago, the White House made an announcement. The Army Corps of Engineers will deny the permit to bore underneath the Missouri River. And I just wanted to give everybody that I'm happy. These are tears of happiness. I just can't believe it.
Thank you. So I thought that that was a really good video to kind of illustrate what I found as I started looking on the internet and Googling around with my old college boyfriend that had sent me a running buffalo video, which happened to be from Standing Rock the day that the buffalo came and ran. And so I became really fascinated with it. And I thought, well, let me back up a little bit. In my early 20s, I had an opportunity to go to a place called First Nations University up in Saskatchewan, Canada. My mother and myself are both in the field of social work, and it had to do with the Native American social work education program. So being in my 20s, I thought I'd go find myself, right? Because you think you're going to find yourself when you're in your 20s, like you're going to arrive. And so I went there, and I ended up spending some time learning a lot about Native culture and Native studies, and ended up spending about a year in Canada up there. And my friends will tell you from college that I ran away with the Indians. So being in my 20s, life went on, and I made some poor decisions, and I decided that that was not going to be a part of my life anymore. And so I went back out into the mainstream world, and life went on, and then 20 years later, this video shows up. And all the pain and all the feelings and all of the love that I had for the culture that I had studied every summer for 4 years with First Nations University, 2 weeks out of the summer every year, I would live on a native reserve as close to traditions as possible. It was part of what they called a Bachelor of Indian Social Work degree program at that time, which was back in like 1993. So anyway, Standing Rock. I couldn't get enough of it. You'll see that people were exposed to water cannons, LRADs, airplanes flying overhead. Looking at this online, I so much wanted to go out. This is right about the time when they had asked for a call out to the world for all of the indigenous nations from all over the world to come and come to Standing Rock. And I just felt like I wanted to go, but I couldn't, and I had 2 children, and I had a husband that was like, this is not my wheelhouse, Elizabeth. I don't know what where's this coming from? So anyway, I started looking into why is this such a big deal? First of all, as you can see that on December 4th, 2016, the Army Corps of Engineers made the decision to halt construction and boring under the river, saying, hey, you haven't done what's called an environmental assessment. And of course, I don't know if some of you have been following this, but it ends up that once our president was elected, he went ahead and signed for the pipeline to go through anyway, and they ended up boring under the Missouri River and completing the pipeline. But it was a huge call out to the world, and I think a lot of people are waking up, and that's kind of the purpose of my talk, is like, hey now, this is clearly an example of corporations over people, because they went ahead and they went ahead and drilled, and the case in court, actually, the last update that I had was that they did determine that, yeah, you need to do an environmental assessment before you bore under the river, but big money talks, and they can pay fines. So, of course, the pipeline is flowing oil, and they're still fighting out the legalities in court that they were actually kind of wrong for letting that happen in the first place, but we'll see how it all turns out. Okay, so where do I start with the water issues? So I started looking around. They were talking about if this pipeline leaks, that millions of people will have contaminated water. I'm like, okay. So I started talking to people online about oil, and this is what I found out. That the way that we get our oil, they use a lot of chemicals. And a lot of those chemicals, when the oil leaks, the oil and its chemicals, back when the Exxon Valdez busted, they're able to kind of scrape the oil off the surface, and it floats, and you wash the animals with the Dawn soap and all that. Well, they're still using that method, but what's happening is that the oil doesn't really float anymore. It sinks to the bottom of the body of water and basically suffocates life from ground up. So you hear about, oh, oil spilled and we cleaned it up, but really the methods, I started researching this on the internet, and I was like, wow, that's really cool. So anyway, water quality. Started Googling about water quality. Did you know that Georgia has like a really bad track record for water quality? I didn't know that either. There's a thing called a water quality report. It comes out like every quarter, and then there's a yearly report that every water municipality puts out. So you can see, what is being tested in your water and what the limits are and all that. But what I found out was that they don't test for all the chemicals in your water. There's actually quite a lot of chemicals that they don't test for, or that are carcinogenic as a result of treating the water with chemicals so that you can drink it. So there's a website, it's called ewg.org, and I found that really good to look at as far as like what's in your water. You can type in your zip code, and most of the water municipalities, you can see what's in your water: uranium, radon, all kinds of things I can't pronounce, and what their byproducts from: industry, agriculture, naturally occurring, that kind of thing. But the water quality report you get from your local government and the water quality report on the EWG are two different things. There's a lot of, what I'm finding out is there's a lot of stuff in our water that we really don't test for. There's debates over what's a maximum allowable limit. So basically what's safe and what's not safe. Like, we have an extraordinarily high amount of copper in our water in Jackson County. I did find that in Franklin County, which isn't too far from here, I believe that's in the Toccoa area, and there's also a small part of Athens when I looked it up on the Environmental Protection Division website, that the Franklin County Water Municipality only serves about 4,000 people, but the repeated water violations, y'all, is really scary. I'm talking years and years and years and years and years. And it has radioactive byproducts in it as well. So who would have figured? Yeah, so I can show you that. So I thought that was really interesting. I had read about 400 military bases being contaminated with water. I'm like Debbie Downer today, I know, but it's kind of fascinating. So I was like at the lake one day, taking a walk, being with nature in my neighborhood, and there's this dude fishing, and I start talking to him, and turns out he was like a cold water rescue guy in Alaska. So I was like, oh yeah, this guy's like definitely specially trained. And I was like, so did you hear about the water contamination? He was like, in the military bases? Because he had spent a lot of time in the military. And he's like, no, I hadn't heard about it. But it turns out I do have a girlfriend. There's 400 military bases. The foam from Air Force, the foam that a lot of soldiers played in, because they thought it was like to extinguish jet fuel fires and things like that, is carcinogenic. and it has seeped into the ground, and there are concerns that the groundwater, it's gone into the groundwater and has gone into local municipalities and water systems, such as the one in Fayetteville, North Carolina, which is also home of the 82nd Airborne and our special ops. So not only do we have our soldiers being, well, it's very concerning that that we seem to be poisoning ourselves. The long-term effects from water contamination, I was reading about Michigan, Flint, Michigan. Who's heard of Flint, Michigan? Yeah, still no water. What's up with that? Like, we can give water to hurricane, victims, but we can't seem to fix our problem in Flint, Michigan. Like, what's really the agenda here, folks? I don't know. I just know that I've been tooling around on the internet, and I find it really fascinating. Delaware, Cape Fear River, Wilmington, used to go to the beach. That's got chromium-6 in it. Google chromium-6. It's like in a lot of water systems, including some in here in Georgia. Asheville, North Carolina. There's a lake up there that has radioactive issues. What else? So, fracking. Anybody heard of fracking? I was kind of going back to fracking. I had no interest in fracking whatsoever until all of this. Basically, it's the method they use to extract oil and gas. The problem is that they use billions of gallons of water to extract the oil and gas, and then when they're done with the water, we're talking millions of gallons of water, they inject it back into the earth. So if you don't inject it far enough, what happens to it? And I'm not sure about you, but I didn't even think about groundwater in the ground, but it's not in a compartment. It's not like in a plastic Ziploc bag. Groundwater kind of moves around and shifts and stuff. So when you have your chemicals getting spilled, eventually they do work their way around. So what does that say? What am I doing about it? Well, it's the first time I've ever gotten up and talked about it. I've tried to talk about it with some other people, and then I end up just sounding like a complete nerd, and people get bored, and they don't really want to talk to me about it, I guess. I don't know. But I've learned a whole lot, not only about myself in this, because I think that Standing Rock really makes you look at yourself in a larger picture, like, what am I doing here, and why am I such a hypocrite when I have a plastic phone, and I don't and I'm concerned about oil and the earth and the environment. I'm a hypocrite. I admit it. But I also admit we have a problem, folks. We have a serious problem with plastic and oil, and that's not to speak against anybody that may be in the industry, because everybody needs to make a living, right? And we know who's down the street. So, I can respect that. And I love monster trucks, but I'm like, I can't go to those anymore because that's really hypocritical. So I didn't go this January. So, small steps. Just been looking into different groups and things to get involved in, and I just wanted to share this with you. I have absolutely not much preparation, but that's it. Anybody have any questions? Or am I talking over your head? I do that. I start talking, and then people are like, what are you talking about? So it's like absent-minded professor.
I have a question. Do you know what, if, let's say Athens tested their water and found, high levels of copper that were, unacceptable, do you know what they do about that? How do they prevent that kind of chemical from being remaining in the water? Is there anything that can be done?
I'm sure there's something that can be done. I have no idea because I haven't studied that far into it and I haven't Googled that far, but they'd be really interested as far as accountability, because clearly we have an accountability issue. Flint, Michigan's happening, Navajo Indian Reservation, Texas. It's all over the place, guys. Wake up. That's all I can say is wake up. No, I don't, but that's a really good question, something I need to look into.
Is there a place where you can check your water? UGA used to do it, but I don't think they do it anymore.
To get your water tested. I know I had seen from a woman, her name's Stella Martin, by the way, Catskills, New York. She had been doing water testing just from Lowe's or Home Depot, buying a home water kit. I don't know if the extension department does water. I know they do soil, which would be really interesting to find out.
Do you drink out of the tap here?
Yes, I do. I do, yeah.
I was wondering.
But it's also like, and I'm drinking, and I can like see the spelling of hexylate, this big word, that you're drinking chemicals. But then the bottled water, they're talking about having microplastic in it too. So it's like, you gotta kind of find a balance here, but we really don't need to be polluting up the place anymore, folks. We have a serious problem with that.
If I Brita my water, am I safe?
I Brita my water. So, I don't know if that was like an endorsement for, EWG.org has like a whole thing about water filters and different types of filters and what you want to filter. And I thought, yeah, if I get like a bunch of money someday, I'd buy like the deluxe filter. And even that, I don't know really filters everything. It's kind of like blood. We never used to screen blood, right? Back in the day, we didn't have a problem with screening blood. It's kind of like that with water now. It seems to me anyway that it's almost like, gosh, we're gonna have to start screening our water to make sure it's safe before we drink it, because we're making a lot of assumptions that it's safe. I know that I'm learning more about Legionella bacteria in aging pipes in your small towns and things like that. Those pipes are eventually not going to be able, they're gonna have to be replaced. They can't be sanitized. That's a lot of money. So think about that. Think about the present day and how tight our money is, and budgets and cities and Flint, Michigan, and things like that. It's kind of concerning. Anything else? Now that I've rambled? Thank you.